Duan Ling Tian frowned and interrupted Wang Ba. I know your name's Bastard. You don't have to keep reminding me. He was annoyed by him. When Wang Ba noticed his continuous verbal mistakes, he did not continue dwelling on it since he knew it would make things worse. Wang Ba then changed the topic. Kid, what I want isn't verbal gratitude. I want you to use your action to thank me. Take action, understand? Take action? What kind of act do you want me to perform as a form of thank you? Duan Ling Tian asked. It's just a small matter. Just help me find a body of a lineal descendant from a dragon clan. Wang Ba said casually, as though looking for the body of a lineal descendant from a dragon clan was a walk in the park. The dragon clan's lineal descendant? What's that? Duan Ling Tian asked doubtfully. You'll know in the future? Promise me first, Wang Ba said. He sounded like he was up to something. However, Duan Ling Tian did not notice that and agreed immediately. All right, I'll help you find the body of a lineal descendant from the dragon clan in the future. You'll leave my body at that time. Of course. Do you think I like living in your body? Wang Ba said, irritated. If not for the fact that he had no other option, he would not willingly stay in this brat's body. Sigh, I can't recall who I am now. Neither can I recall the people I know apart from you. Duan Ling Tian sighed. So, where should I go now? Kid, there's a city in the east. I suggest you take a look over there. Maybe you'll see someone you know, Wang Ba said. Naturally, it was complete nonsense. He only said that to comfort Duan Ling Tian. All right then, I'll go there. Duan Ling Tian replied and nodded. He leaped in preparation to fly. Unfortunately, he was unable to fly. Kid, don't forget you just restored your Dantian. Your cultivation base has not recovered to the innate stage yet, Wang Ba reminded him. Only martial artists at the innate stage were able to fly. It was an ironclad law of Dao Martial Saint Land, and it was also an ironclad law of the three great mortal continents, including Cloud Continent. On Cloud Continent, the lowest stage of innate stage was called the Void Prying Stage. I'll kill the person who severed my Dantian when I remember who he is. Duan Ling Tian was angry. He could no longer fly. He could only run. Fortunately, the city was not far from the mountain range. With his leg's strength, a tiny black dot appeared before him after a while. The tiny little, it continued growing before it eventually turned into a big and magnificent city. The city was like a crouching gigantic beast. It looked oppressive when one looked at it from afar. There were some martial artists entering and exiting the city occasionally. Duan Ling Tian's arrival did not capture any of the martial artists' attention. Although he was different from the others who were flying since he was walking, he did not attract any attention. After all, anything could happen, and there were many kinds of people on Cloud Continent. Duan Ling Tian. When Duan Ling Tian entered the city, a surprised voice sounded from behind him. The voice was getting closer and closer to him. However, Duan Ling Tian did not bother with the owner of that voice at all. It was not intentional because he had no idea his name was Duan Ling Tian. Soon after, two silhouettes arrived before Duan Ling Tian almost at the same time and stopped him. The two silhouettes belonged to two young men dressed in red and blue respectively. The red-clad young man looked at Duan Ling Tian as he said, Duan Ling Tian, you're calling me? Duan Ling Tian was surprised when he saw the two identical young men's sudden appearance. He was stunned when he heard the red-clad young man calling him Duan Ling Tian as he looked at him. Did the red-clad young man know him? Wang Ba? To be more precise, his soul, that was in Duan Ling Tian's body, could not help but mutter to himself. How can there be such a coincidence? Duan Ling Tian. Don't tell me you don't recognize us? The red-clad young man was stunned. I know both of you. Duan Ling Tian looked confused. He said softly, I don't remember both of you. Also, did you call me Duan Ling Tian? Is my name Duan Ling Tian? You even forgot your own name. The red-clad young man was completely shocked. On the other hand, the blue-clad young man next to him who was silent all along revealed a shocked expression on his originally emotionless face. Yes, Duan Ling Tian nodded before he shook his head again. He said, I lost part of my memory. So my name's Duan Ling Tian. Of course, you're Duan Ling Tian, the one and only Duan Ling Tian. The red-clad young man said as he nodded. I don't remember both of you. Did I know both of you before I lost my memory? Duan Ling Tian asked curiously as he looked at the two young men who looked identical. How can you remember us when you don't even remember your own name? The red-clad young man said with a forced smile on his face. He shook his head. But you certainly knew us before you lost your memory. My name's Nangong Yi, and he's Nangong Chun. We're twin brothers. If you don't remember us, do you remember the Five Elements sect? the five-element sect in the northern desert of the eastern zone. The red-clad young man introduced himself and the blue-clad young man next to him before he added, "We met each other at the five-element sect. Our master is the sect leader of five-element sect. Nangong-yi, Nangong-chun." "I don't remember," Duan Ling Tian said with a frown. He shook his head. Duan Ling Tian. What exactly? Just when Nangong-yi was about to ask Duan Ling Tian how he lost his memory, an earth-shattering scream interrupted him. Nangong-chun. Nangong-yi. The earth-shattering scream came from behind Duan Ling Tian, shocking him. "Somebody's calling both of you." Duan Ling Tian looked at the Nangong brothers. Duan Ling Tian. "If that person comes after us and asks you about us, tell him you don't know us." Duan Ling Tian noticed the change in Nangong-yi's expression. Nangong-yi left after informing Duan Ling Tian and flew toward the city ahead with Nangong-chun in tow, as though they were avoiding the god of plague. Nangong-yi just remembered that he and Nangong-chun were being hunted by an old fellow at the moment. They had completely forgotten about it when they saw Duan Ling Tian. At this moment, a ghost-like silhouette appeared before Duan Ling Tian. It was an old man dressed in a black robe. The black robe completely concealed him. Even his face could not be seen. He emitted an eerie vibe. Although Duan Ling Tian could not really see the old man's appearance, he could see the old man's eyes gleaming fiercely. The old man stared at Duan Ling Tian before he chased after Nangong-chun and Nangong-yi into the city. There were waves of terrifying aura on his body. Duan Ling Tian had not regained his senses at this moment. "Kid, it's not easy bumping into someone you know. Do you want to see both of them die?" Wang Ba's voice came at this very moment, causing Duan Ling Tian to snap back to reality. Duan Ling Tian's expression changed drastically, and he rushed toward the city ahead. He caught up to the black-robed old man in the distance. Divine dragon form. Whoosh. A five-colored energy surrounded Duan Ling Tian as he dashed out, as though there was an invisible sword opening a path for him. He seemed like he had transformed into a five-colored divine dragon. Although he had lost his memory, he could perform the movement martial skills that he had mastered subconsciously. At this time, he was getting closer and closer to the black-robed old man. On the north side of the vast city was a barren land. Everything was in ruin and had long been abandoned. Usually, no one would come here. However, two young men were facing their life or death here today. Nangong-chun, Nangong-yi, both of you will definitely die today. The black-robed old man moved like the wind as though he had turned into a ghost. He caught up to Nangong-chun and Nangong-yi in just a blink of an eye. The Nangong brothers' speed was far lacking compared to the black-robed old man. **T. Nangong-yi's expression changed drastically when he noticed the sound of wind whistling behind them getting closer and closer. Even Nangong-chun, who was always emotionless, had a terrible expression on his face. Whoosh. In just an instant, the black-robed old man obstructed the Nangong brothers' way. He hovered in the air and looked down at both of them as he said in disdain, "Do you really think you can escape from me?" The Nangong brothers' expression changed when they saw the black-robed old man appearing before them. At the same time, a hint of despair could be seen on their faces. They had been running for days. Would they really not be able to escape today? Whoosh. At the moment when the Nangong brothers resigned themselves to face death, a wind-like silhouette flashed and appeared before the Nangong brothers. The silhouette stood calmly facing the black-robed old man, eye to eye. Duan Ling Tian. The Nangong brothers were stunned when they saw the purple-clad young man's sudden appearance. They did not expect Duan Ling Tian would come after them. He had to know that he might get dragged into the danger they were in. "They're useful to me. You get out of here," Duan Ling Tian said. The tone of his voice was calm and brooked no argument. "Brat, I spared your life earlier. Since you're so ungrateful, I'll take your worthless life now." The black-robed old man was a little surprised to see Duan Ling Tian's appearance. However, he quickly decided to kill Duan Ling Tian. "Wait." Nangong-yi stopped the black-robed old man when he was getting ready to attack. "This is between us. It has nothing to do with him. Go." Nangong-chun was even more straightforward as he flew and stood before Duan Ling Tian. He shielded Duan Ling Tian behind him and asked Duan Ling Tian to leave. The brothers did not want to drag Duan Ling Tian into their personal matter. Naturally, this was because they were unaware of Duan Ling Tian's current ability. The Nangong brothers knew Duan Ling Tian was extremely talented in martial Dao previously. The fact that he was at the inner land showed that his ability was outstanding too. However, Just because his ability was outstanding did not mean that he would be able to handle the black-robed man standing before them. The black-robed old man was at the 7th level martial monarch stage. Although both of them had some great encounters since arriving at the inner land, they were just at the 5th level martial monarch stage and 6th level martial monarch stage respectively. They were far lacking compared to the black-robed old man, let alone the black-robed old man. They even thought Duan Ling Tian's strength was weaker than theirs. Therefore, they did not want to involve Duan Ling Tian in their matter. Both of you are helpless, and yet, you're still thinking about him? Hilarious. The black-robed old man scoffed. The black robe on his body fluttered as he charged at Duan Ling Tian. It made him look like a black bat. Brat, let me show you the consequences of meddling in other people's business. He was so fast that even Nangong Yi could not react in time. In just a blink of an eye, he arrived before Nangong Chun, who was shielding Duan Ling Tian. He lifted his arm and attacked Nangong Chun. The difference between the 7th level martial monarch stage and the 6th level martial monarch stage was made obvious at this very moment. Nangong Chun's expression changed drastically when he was attacked. He spat out a mouthful of blood. When he looked at the black-robed old man again, he discovered the black-robed old man had arrived before Duan Ling Tian. He attacked with his hand. The spirit weapon glove on his hand was glowing brightly, as though he had divine help. Bang! Bang, 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 bang. A wind swept out when the black-robed old man attacked Duan Ling Tian with his hand. There was a tremor in the air before the airwaves turned into a flurry of hurricanes, causing Duan Ling Tian's purple robe and hair to flutter in the wind. The Nangong brothers' expression changed, and they shouted in unison to warn Duan Ling Tian. Look out! It was too late for them to save him now. There were 4 ancient black dragon silhouettes above the black-robed old man's head when he attacked. The ferocious and destructive attack shot toward Duan Ling Tian, who was standing nearby. Even at this point, Duan Ling Tian did not have any intention to dodge. He stood there while waves of faint origin energy appeared. It lingered around his body subtly. It would have gone unnoticed if one did not look closely. The indistinct origin energy combined with the heaven and earth energy formed 2 ancient mammoth silhouettes. 1st level core formation stage. That was Duan Ling Tian's current cultivation base. 1st level core formation stage. When they saw the heaven and earth phenomenon above Duan Ling Tian's head, not only was the black-robed old man shocked, but the Nangong brothers were shocked as well. How is that possible? The Nangong brothers' faces were filled with disbelief. They had a hard time believing the sight before their eyes were real. However, the proof was right in front of them. They had no choice but to believe it. As soon as a martial artist attacked with origin energy, even if it was just a small amount, it would draw the heaven and earth energy and form the heaven and earth phenomenon that corresponded with their cultivation base. Now that the origin energy around Duan Ling Tian had mobilized the heaven and earth energy and formed 2 ancient mammoth silhouettes, it revealed his current cultivation base. 1st level core formation stage. However, from what they remembered, it was impossible for Duan Ling Tian to be a 1st level core formation martial artist no matter what. Moreover, a 1st level core formation martial artist should not even be here. You're just an ant to me. As thunder and lightning struck, the black-robed old man finally attacked Duan Ling Tian with the energy he charged while he was teasing and belittling him. He directed the attack at Duan Ling Tian's body. Bang! A deafening explosion reverberated in the air. Gusts of rumbling airwaves turned into a flurry of hurricanes in just a blink of an eye, causing the gravels on the ground to fly all over the place. The Nangong brothers' expression was terrible when they heard the loud explosion. They had no idea why Duan Ling Tian's cultivation base was only at the 1st level core formation stage. They did not think he would survive a 7th level martial monarch stage martial artist's full force attack. However, the gory scene they expected was nowhere to be seen. The scene before the Nangong brothers' eyes made their expression change to one of amazement. All they saw was a purple-clad Duan Ling Tian standing there with a 5-colored light shield around his body. Nobody knew when it appeared. The shield was releasing a ferocious aura. Meanwhile, the black-robed old man's palm was stuck on the 5-colored light shield on Duan Ling Tian's body. The majestic energy that came out of his palm seemed to know no end. However, the 5-colored light shield was unaffected at the places where the majestic energy attacked. Pa, 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 pa. At this moment, horrifying cracks began to spread from below the black-robed old man's feet. It was as though they were forming a huge spider web. The cracks spread tens of meters before it finally came to a stop. On the other hand, the ground beneath Duan Ling Tian's feet was perfectly untouched. It was obvious who was winning in this fight. You. There was fear in the black-robed old man's eyes as he attempted to say something. Suddenly, his eyes that were concealed narrowed. This was because he saw the heaven and earth phenomenon above Duan Ling Tian's head. 5 ancient black dragon silhouettes were descending as they looked at the world with disdain. The 2 ancient mammoth silhouettes seemed insignificant next to them. Humph! The black-robed old man groaned in pain. The pain came from the 5-colored light shield on Duan Ling Tian's body that had appeared out of thin air. It shrouded the black-robed old man's hand before it severed his arm. Fresh blood splattered everywhere. So what if I'm an ant? I can still step on you with my foot. Duan Ling Tian said coldly as he casually threw a punch. The majestic 5-colored energy formed the shape of a sword in just a blink of an eye and landed hard on the black-robed old man's lower abdomen. Bang! A loud noise similar to an exploding balloon resounded in the air. Waves of rumbling origin energy swept out of the black-robed old man's dantian. The origin energy vanished without a trace after that. You severed my dantian. The black-robed old man's expression changed drastically after Duan Ling Tian attacked him. His eyes were filled with animosity when he glared at Duan Ling Tian. It seemed as though his eyes were going to pop out. He wanted to cut Duan Ling Tian into a million pieces. Bang! The black-robed old man was sent flying like an arrow leaving the bow. He eventually landed hard on the ground, struggling to get up. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew by, and a purple silhouette appeared before him out of thin air. Duan Ling Tian arrived before the black-robed old man with lightning speed and stepped on his chest. The black-robed old man fell back on the ground. 5 ancient black dragon strength. Nangongyi finally turned around after a while. He gulped as he looked at the purple silhouette in disbelief. At this moment, he really felt the purple silhouette before him was almighty. Nangongshan also revealed a rarely seen shocked expression on his usually cold face. This purple-clad young man's ability was still above them even after all their great encounters. Seems like his encounters are even better. Nangongchun was only left with that thought. He thought his encounters were great, but he did not expect the purple-clad young man's encounters would be even better. I'll hand him over to both of you. Duan Ling Tian stepped on the black-robed old man as he released the 5-colored energy from his foot, crushing all of the energy that was rising on the black-robed old man's body. Although the black-robed old man's dantian was severed, the profundities that he had comprehended were still there. Hearing that, Nangong Yi's eyes lit up, and he flew to Duan Ling Tian. He looked down at the black-robed old man and said coldly, "Shuigui, I bet you didn't think this would happen to you today." The black-robed old man lying beneath Duan Ling Tian's foot had difficulties breathing as he begged in pain. "Nangongyi, please let me go. I'm willing to give you everything I obtained from that place. I've lost my cultivation base. I'm no longer a threat to you now. Wouldn't those things belong to me anyway after I kill you?" Nangongyi smirked in disdain and attacked the black-robed old man who was in despair. His life was ended just like that. Subsequently, Nangongyi took the spatial ring and profundity fragments that belonged to the black-robed old man and handed it over to Duan Ling Tian. "Thank you, Duan Ling Tian. If not for you, me and Nangongchun would have died today." Duan Ling Tian did not stand on ceremony and put the spatial ring and profundity fragments away before he nodded. He then asked, "How well do both of you know me? Let's look for a restaurant. We'll talk about it later," Nangongyi suggested. Duan Ling Tian nodded. Soon, Duan Ling Tian and the Nangong brothers walked into a restaurant and got a private room on the 2nd floor. They sat at a round table in the private room. "Actually, we don't know much about you," Nangongyi said after taking his seat. "We met at the 5-Element sect. You were..." Nangongyi patiently told Duan Ling Tian everything he did back when they were at the 5-Element sect. "Did it ring a bell?" Nangongyi asked later. "I don't remember." Duan Ling Tian shook his head. He could not recall what Wood Peak was, who the Wood Peak's elder or peak master of Wood Peak was. "We left the 5-Element sect with sect leader and went to the Martial Emperor's secret treasure later on. You obtained profundity fragments over there and gave it to the sect." Nangongyi continued to speak. "You didn't return with us after the trip to the Martial Emperor's secret treasure. You left with your friend. I think you went back to your hometown," Nangongyi said. "Hometown?" Duan Ling Tian's eyes lit up. Do you know where my hometown is? No idea. Nangong Yi shook his head, causing Duan Ling Tian's eyes to dim again. He thought he could regain his memory in his hometown. Nangong Chun, who had been quiet all this while, asked, "How did you lose your memory?" It was a rare occasion for him to speak. "I'm not too sure. I think my soul's broken." Duan Ling Tian shook his head. He knew his soul was broken from Wang Ba, but he could not remember how. "Kid, what's the rush? With your soul restoration speed, it'll only take a year at the most before you completely recover. At that time, you'll find out everything you want to know." Wang Ba's voice resounded in Duan Ling Tian's head at this moment. "Oh yeah." Nangong Yi looked at Duan Ling Tian as though he just recalled something and asked, "Duan Ling Tian, what's wrong with the origin energy that you cast earlier? Why did it only mobilize the heaven and earth energy and form two silhouettes of ancient mammoths? My Dantian's crippled, and it was only restored not too long ago. Due to this reason, my current cultivation base is only at the first level core formation stage." Duan Ling Tian answered truthfully. This sounded extremely casual, as though he was talking about something insignificant. Upon hearing Duan Ling Tian's words, the two Nangong brothers were stunned. His Dantian was crippled and was restored again. Duan Ling Tian, you're not joking, right? You actually restored your Dantian after it was crippled? Nangong Yi asked as he looked at Duan Ling Tian skeptically. "You don't believe me?" Duan Ling Tian asked when he saw how skeptical Nangong Yi was. "It's not that I don't believe you. It's just that this is too inconceivable," Nangong Yi replied. "How about I cripple your Dantian and then restore it for you?" Duan Ling Tian asked as he looked at Nangong Yi's Dantian. I believe. The moment Nangong Yi heard Duan Ling Tian's words, he instantly panicked. He instantly nodded his head like a chick pecking on grains. He did not dare to doubt Duan Ling Tian's words any further. Or at the very least, he did not dare to show his doubts on his face anymore. He was afraid Duan Ling Tian would really cripple his Dantian. Even if one's Dantian could really be restored, one would have to recultivate one's cultivation base. Just like Duan Ling Tian's current situation, he was only at the first level core formation stage. Your Dantian's already crippled, but you can still mobilize the heaven and earth energy and form the silhouettes of 5 ancient black dragons. The 6 martial monarch profundities that you've comprehended are at the 8th level or above on average. Nangong Chen asked. His eyes gleamed as he looked at Duan Ling Tian. The fused profundity Duan Ling Tian cast earlier had 5 different colors, so Nangong Chen mistook it for 5 different profundities. As for the last one, there was no doubt that it was the sword profundity. "I'm not sure. I guess so," Duan Ling Tian replied, frowning. "I guess so." Upon hearing this, the two Nangong brothers were rendered speechless. There was actually someone who did not know what profundities he had comprehended. However, the moment they recalled Duan Ling Tian did not even remember his own name before he met them, they felt at ease again. After all, Duan Ling Tian had lost part of his memory. "Duan Ling Tian, there are many good items in the spatial ring left behind by that Shui Gui. You can have a look if you have some time to spare," Nangong Yi reminded him. Upon hearing this, Duan Ling Tian took out the spatial ring and performed blood ownership claim on it, without saying any more words. After doing that, he took a cursory look at the spatial ring and nodded his head nonchalantly. "Not bad. I can use many of the medicinal materials in here." "That's good." Nangong Yi nodded his head before he became speechless again. Of all the treasures inside the spatial ring, this guy only noticed the medicinal materials? Naturally, Nangong Yi did not know that other than the medicinal materials, Duan Ling Tian was not interested in the other things contained in the spatial ring. To be more precise, he had no lack of it. For instance, Duan Ling Tian was not interested at all in the huge number of high-grade origin stones, supreme-grade origin stones, or the grade 1 spirit weapons and pills. Duan Ling Tian did not lose his memory regarding these things. "Duan Ling Tian, why did you come here?" Nangong Yi asked. "I have no idea. After I lost my memory, I was already in the vicinity of this place when I woke up." Duan Ling Tian replied truthfully, shaking his head. "I really wonder what you've gone through. Not only did you lose your memory, but even your Dantian's crippled. It's fortunate that your Dantian is restored and will eventually return to normal in the future," Nangong Yi muttered. When he reached the end of his sentence, he seemed to have recalled something again. He turned his burning gaze toward Duan Ling Tian. "Duan Ling Tian, are you interested in joining the selection of the Martial Emperor's disciples and followers?" Martial Emperor's disciples and followers. Upon hearing Nangong Yi's words, Duan Ling Tian frowned before he ransacked whatever memory he had left in his brain. Soon after, he discovered what Martial Emperor's disciples and followers meant. Naturally, this part of the memory belonged to the Rebirth Martial Emperor. In the Rebirth Martial Emperor's memory, his direct disciples, and followers were all recorded in detail. After all, the Rebirth Martial Emperor had taken many direct disciples, and followers during both of his reincarnations. It sounds quite interesting, Duan Ling Tian opined. Nangongyi and I are about to go to Lingxian Peak to join the selection of Martial Emperor's disciples and followers held by Martial Emperor Lingxian in July. Why don't you join us? Nangongyi suggested. Sure, Duan Ling Tian nodded. Since he did not know where to go next, it was better to have a set destination than to wander around aimlessly. Moreover, based on the memory he had left, he knew that a martial emperor had profound skills and was shockingly charismatic. Perhaps he would be able to find out where he came from through that martial emperor Lingxian or something before he restored his memory. Although Wang Ba said his memory would be fully restored in 1 year at most, he was uncertain about the credibility of Wang Ba's words. It was better if he had a backup plan. If I join the selection of the martial emperor's disciples and followers, I must become the martial emperor's direct disciple. An ordinary martial emperor's disciple and follower don't even have any qualification to meet with a martial emperor, let alone asking him for help, Duan Ling Tian thought to himself. Duan Ling Tian also learned from the Nangong brothers the reason the black-robed old man was chasing after them. It was because 3 of them had come across the same fortuitous encounter. In the end, the black-robed old man wanted to take all the things in their possession. That was why he gave chase to them. Don't tell me the things you two obtained are more or less the same with the items inside that spatial ring, Duan Ling Tian asked with a strange expression on his face. The items we obtained are not as good as his, but they're all about the same, Nangongyi replied. It's not as good as the items in that spatial ring. The moment Duan Ling Tian heard this, he lost his interest immediately. Nangongyi smiled wryly as though he could tell Duan Ling Tian was not interested in the items that they obtained. To us, these items are quite remarkable. However, the fortuitous encounter we had was not with these items. These items are far from being comparable to the rise of our strength. When he reached the end of his sentence, an excitement that could hardly be concealed appeared in his eyes. Indeed, Nangong Chun and his cultivation base had both risen. However, he did not continue on after he noticed Duan Ling Tian did not seem very interested in their fortuitous encounter. Looks like his fortuitous encounter must be greater than ours, Nangong Chun thought to himself as he looked at Duan Ling Tian's calm countenance. If this was not the case, he really could not think of any other reason why Duan Ling Tian would be so calm. Duan Ling Tian and the other 2 temporarily stayed in an inn they found in the city as they prepared to leave for Lingxian Peak in 1 month's time. Lingxian Peak would be open to the public 6 months before the selection of the Martial Emperor's disciples and followers began. Within that 6 months, whoever who wanted to join the selection could cultivate in Lingxian Peak. Naturally, the place was intentionally prepared by Lingxian Peak for them to cultivate. In the next 2 weeks, Duan Ling Tian stayed in the guest room quietly. He did not leave the room at all as he cultivated quietly. 2 weeks later, it's here. Duan Ling Tian, who was originally sitting on the bed, suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes lit up. He left the room and flew away from the city beneath him. Before he left, he did not tell the Nangong brothers at all. When he reached a deserted area outside of the city, dark clouds gathered from all over the place above his head as it rumbled. After the clouds rumbled for a while, bolts of lightning could be seen. You've recovered to the innate spirit refinery stage, or the void prying stage on Cloud Continent, in just 2 weeks. Boy, how did you manage to recover so fast? Wang Ba's shocked voice echoed inside Duan Ling Tian's head. During this 2 weeks, Duan Ling Tian, who recultivated the 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique, had raised his cultivation base rapidly like a rocket all the way to the void prying stage. Whoosh! Duan Ling Tian soared up into the sky and hovered in the air as he answered calmly. I have no idea. I feel like after my Dantian recovered, my cultivation speed became faster too. The medicinal efficacy stored in your Dantian from the mortal shedding pill is one of the 2 reasons why your cultivation speed is so fast. The other reason must be the effect of construction after destruction, Wang Ba said before pausing. Construction after destruction? Duan Ling Tian muttered to himself. It seemed as though he understood the meaning of the words. I really wonder where you obtained the mortal shedding pill from. Moreover, it's a mortal shedding pill that has no pre-consumption requirements. Wang Ba mused. Usually, the mortal shedding pill was only available in the Dao Martial Saint Land. It was extremely rare for it to appear on the mortal continent. Moreover, in most cases, mortal shedding pills could only be consumed by martial or Dao cultivators who had entered the mortal shedding stage. Martial or Dao cultivators below the mortal shedding stage would explode from the tyrannical medicinal efficacy. This was the pre-consumption requirement of the mortal shedding pill. One must have a cultivation base at the mortal shedding stage at the very least. However, the mortal shedding pill Duan Ling Tian consumed did not have this requirement at all. Otherwise, the tyrannical medicinal efficacy of the mortal shedding pill would not have appeared in Duan Ling Tian's body at all. I told you, I was the one who made it. Duan Ling Tian answered in agitation. Boom. As soon as Duan Ling Tian's words left his mouth, a bolt of lightning fell from the sky. It was the 6-9 heavenly tribulation caused by Duan Ling Tian after he made a breakthrough to the void prying stage. This was the first lightning tribulation. However, before the bolt of lightning struck down at Duan Ling Tian's head, it was already dispelled by a sword ray that rose up to the sky before it even managed to go near to him. Boy, it's not that I look down on you, but are you sure you're able to refine the mortal shedding pill? Doubt was obvious in Wang Ba's tone. Believe it or not, I don't care. According to the memories I have left, that energy originated from a pill called the Rebirth pill. It's made by me, Duan Ling Tian replied indifferently after he shattered the first bolt of lightning. Rebirth pill? What did you use as the main active ingredient? Wang Ba asked again. I think it's called the Scarlet Phoenix blood or something. Duan Ling Tian answered after he pondered for a while. What? The Scarlet Phoenix blood? Wang Ba exclaimed before he let loose a torrent of verbal abuse. Boy, you actually wasted the Scarlet Phoenix blood to such an extent? Come on. You must know that even the worst alchemist in Dao Martial Saint Land could use the Scarlet Phoenix blood to refine the Saint Rudiment pill. A better alchemist could even use the Scarlet Phoenix blood as the main active ingredient to refine a Saint-grade pill. Why you actually used it to refine the mortal shedding pill? What a reckless waste of God's gift. What a reckless waste of God's gift. When Wang Ba was at the height of his scolding, he could not help but hurl a few more sentences at him. This is not the Dao Martial Saint Land. Besides, since that Scarlet Phoenix blood is mine, it's naturally up to me how I want to use it. You're still not qualified enough to lecture me, bastard. Duan Ling Tian replied nonchalantly. It could be seen from his words that he did not find it wasteful to use the Scarlet Phoenix blood at all. In his opinion, all these Dao Martial Saint Land, Saint Rudiment pill, Saint Grade pill, or something had nothing to do with him now. He just wanted to regain his memory as fast as possible. He was not concerned about anything else. No matter what, they were all items unrelated to him. Humph. Boy, I'm a bastard if I remind you next time when I see you wasting any rare active medicinal ingredient again. Upon hearing such indifferent words from Duan Ling Tian, Wang Ba snorted unhappily. When he reached the end of his sentence, his tone was raised a few pitches higher. You're indeed bastard, Duan Ling Tian replied as a matter of fact. You. Wang Ba was instantly infuriated. At the same time, he cursed the old man who named him. Why the hell would he give him such an easily misunderstood name? Boy, I want to change my name. I want to change my name. Wang Ba was enraged. Just change it if you wanna. You don't have to tell me. No matter what name you change to, I'll still call you bastard. I'm used to it now anyway. Duan Ling Tian chimed in. The moment Wang Ba heard Duan Ling Tian's words, he was rendered speechless. Boom. Another bolt of lightning struck again. The second lightning tribulation came in a fury, aiming for Duan Ling Tian's head. However, as fierce as the lightning tribulation was, it was still shattered by a faint sword ray when it approached Duan Ling Tian. Using the first-level void prying stage's origin energy and his Emperor stage sword profundity to counter with the 6-9 heavenly tribulation that a first-level void prying stage martial artist faced, was as easy as carrying out his daily activities. Just the Emperor stage sword profundity alone was equivalent to the strength of 2 ancient black dragons. Duan Ling Tian suddenly took the initiative to call Wang Ba bastard. What? Wang Ba responded, irritated. It was apparent he was still unhappy about the matter earlier. No matter what, he was still a Saint stage powerhouse in the Dao Martial Saint Land previously. Now that he was dependent on another person to live, he did not even have the authority to change his own name. Naturally, it was not that he could not change his name. However, Duan Ling Tian would still call him bastard even after he changed it. It was pointless for him to change his name in that case. During these 2 weeks, I regained some of my memory again. Although I still can't recall my past, I remember a person named Zishang. He seemed to have a soul living inside his body as well. Every time a black flame mark appeared between his brows, his strength would rise several levels, and his voice would change to someone else's voice too. Duan Ling Tian frowned as he asked, "Are you able to raise my power too?" "Humph, boy, these things you mentioned are the techniques of those devil cultivators with low cultivation base. If a powerful devil cultivator like me try to forcibly control your body will definitely shatter into ashes." Wang Ba snorted. "You'll do well to remember this. Even if you encounter any danger in the future, I won't be able to help you even if you die." It was precisely because of this that Wang Ba did not seize the chance to possess Duan Ling Tian's body when his soul was suppressed by the energy from the Devil Seal tablet. Even if he managed to possess Duan Ling Tian's body, his body would not be able to support his soul. His soul would need a more powerful body to support it. However, the soul of this boy seems a little strange. When his soul was suppressed by the soul remnant energy inside the Devil Seal tablet, I could possess his body and let his soul turn into ashes. However, right now, I feel that even if I use my soul to attack his soul, it's very likely that I won't be able to possess his body. There's something in his soul that seems to make my soul fear his. If my soul goes near him, it'll begin to tremble on its own. Wang Ba thought to himself. He dreaded Duan Ling Tian's soul. Wang Ba, naturally, had no idea Duan Ling Tian's soul came from another world. That world was called Earth. After Duan Ling Tian came to this world, there was the Rebirth Martial Emperor's soul and the soul of the Devil Cultivator, Dark Nether from the Devil Seal tablet, who wanted to crush his soul. However, both of them was turned into dust without any exception. Due to the restriction in different worlds and different laws, no soul could replace Duan Ling Tian's soul. Naturally, it would be different if it was an attack on the soul. The soul remnant energy inside the Devil Seal tablet that suppressed Duan Ling Tian's soul was known as a soul attack. It could destroy Duan Ling Tian's soul and make him vanish forever. "Can't your soul cast the soul attack to help me?" Duan Ling Tian asked. The soul attack was also a spiritual energy attack. Usually, only a powerhouse at the Martial Emperor stage or above could master it. Naturally, some talented demon beasts could master the spiritual energy attack faster since they possessed the bloodline that passed down the soul skill. Soul skill was spiritual energy attack, and spiritual energy attack was soul attack. What do you even know? To cast the soul attack, you'll need a body as a support. Right now, my soul is in the soul wandering state. Unless I force my soul to clash with all its might, it won't have any attacking power at all, Wang Ba replied, irritated. "Doesn't that mean you're pretty much useless?" Duan Ling Tian asked with a frown. If it was really as Wang Ba said, then Wang Ba was basically no different from trash to him. "Boy, how can you talk like that? No matter what, I'm still a Saint Stage powerhouse from the Dao Martial Saint Land." From Wang Ba's tone, it was obvious he was going to boast about all his glorious deeds. "Well, weren't you sealed by the Devil Seal tablet in the end?" However, with just one sentence from Duan Ling Tian, he could no longer continue his sentence. How could he still continue? "Boy, I'm not going to argue with you," Wang Ba replied furiously. Duan Ling Tian also could not be bothered to talk to Wang Ba anymore as he flew out. "After I've recultivated to the void prying stage, I am finally able to fly again. Although my origin energy is still weak, my speed is still very fast due to my fused profundity and sword profundity." Duan Ling Tian was very pleased about this. Boom, boom, boom. In the next instant, the third to the sixth lightning tribulation descended successively. One was stronger than the other. However, when all the lightning tribulations landed on the five-colored light shield surrounding Duan Ling Tian, they did not leave any marks behind at all. It was as though they were just helping Duan Ling Tian to scratch his itch. After going through the 6-9 heavenly tribulation, Duan Ling Tian returned to the city and went back to his room in the inn. He continued to cultivate after he returned to his room. While he was cultivating, he did not forget to comprehend his fused profundity and study the sword Dao from the word sword to raise his sword profundity. Although he had lost part of his memory, he did not lose the memory on how to cultivate. With the aid of the rebirth pill's medicinal efficacy and the reconstruction after destruction after Duan Ling Tian's Dantian was healed, His recultivation could yield twice the result with half the effort. Due to this reason, his cultivation base was rising at a horrifying speed. In Lost Stone Forest, ever since that red-robed old man, Chi brought Feng Tianwu away, Martial Emperor Shi had been studying the stone tablet with a chipped corner in his hand, trying to discover the secret behind it. In a spacious stone house, Martial Emperor Shi was sitting cross-legged in the air as he looked at the stone tablet with a chipped corner. He muttered to himself absent-mindedly. That day, that purple-clad young man's strength was not even comparable to Zhou, but he actually gained strength that surpassed mine with the help of this stone tablet. This stone tablet's energy must be hiding a secret. It has been almost a month, but I've yet to find what's so special about this stone tablet. Don't tell me I'm not compatible with it. When he was lost in his thoughts, his grip loosened and the stone tablet fell. It was only when it smashed on the ground with a loud crash that he finally returned to his senses. However, the moment he looked at the stone tablet that crashed on the floor, his eyes narrowed and his face darkened immediately. There was a fine crack that appeared on the stone tablet. It extended to both ends of the stone tablet, as though the stone tablet was going to split in two. Impossible. Martial Emperor Shi lifted the stone tablet with a raise of his arm. He only exerted his strength slightly before the stone tablet split into two with a loud crack. It's fake. Martial Emperor Shi's face turned grave immediately. The stone tablet was a fake. In other words, it had been changed by someone. That day, when the stone tablet was still in the hand of that purple-clad young man, it could still fight against the quasi-royal grade spirit spear in his hand. How could it possibly crack so easily with just a fall? Zhou, Martial Emperor Shi did not need to think too long before Zhou appeared in his mind. He was the only person who had the opportunity to commit this fraud and change the stone tablet. Whoosh! In the next instant, Martial Emperor Shi disappeared from inside the stone house into thin air. When he reappeared again, he was already standing in front of the stone house that Zhou stayed in. After blasting the door open, he noticed that it was completely vacant. Moreover, it was covered with a layer of dust. Zhou, how dare you deceive your master? After looking at the layer of dust in the stone house, if Martial Emperor Shi still did not understand what was going on, then all his years of living would have been in vain. Zhou, the direct disciple he doted on the most, had deceived him and escaped with the mysterious stone tablet. Looks like it's a lie when he told me he was going into closed-door cultivation. He was actually planning to escape. It's been a month. I hope I can still find him. If I manage to find him, I'll show him the consequences of deceiving his own master. Martial Emperor Shi's face was grave. He vanished from his spot as his eyes gleamed sharply. After so many years, this was the first time he was leaving Lost Stone Forest. The reason was none other than to look for that ungrateful disciple of his. He would not have expected this to happen in the past. Martial Emperor Shi left Lost Stone Forest in search of Zhou. As for whether he would be able to find him or not, that would depend on his luck, ability, and if Zhou had hidden well. At the southern part of the inner land, near Ling Tian Peak, two fiery red figures stood there. A red-robed old man and a red-clad woman stood side by side. Hints of exhaustion could be seen on the woman's extremely beautiful and delicate face. Tianwu girl, we've searched the entire surrounding area, but we still can't find that big brother Duan of yours. I guess he must have gone somewhere else, the red-robed old man said. Then I'll look for him somewhere else. The woman had a determined expression on her face. It was as though she would not rest until she found her big brother Duan. Let's hope we'll find him within the next 2 months. The red-robed old man did not have any objections regarding this. The red-robed old man was none other than Chi, and the red-clad woman was Feng Tianwu. Feng Tianwu had been searching for Duan Ling Tian for a month now. With Chihua's help, she went to many places in the western and northern side of the inner land in this 1 month. What Feng Tianwu did not know was the person she was looking for was actually at a place close to the center of the inner land. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 3 figures soared up to the sky at the north of a city before vanishing in the horizon. 3 young men were flying in a straight line above the clouds and mist. Duan Ling Tian, you've actually recultivated to the void-prying stage in just a month? A red-clad young man looked at a purple-clad young man with astonishment on his face. Void-prying stage? Duan Ling Tian smiled nonchalantly. He did not confirm nor deny the statement. Void-prying stage? That was 2 weeks ago. When you entered the void-prying stage again, Did you have to undergo the 6-9 heavenly tribulation again? The red-clad young man asked. Of course. Duan Ling Tian nodded. You haven't gone through that yet? The red-clad young man asked again. I have. Some time ago, Duan Ling Tian replied. The red-clad young man and a blue-clad young man were immediately stunned. The red-clad and blue-clad young men were none other than Nangong Yi and Nangong Chun. They were traveling together with Duan Ling Tian to Lingxian Peak to join the selection of the Martial Emperor's disciples and followers held by Martial Emperor Lingxian. Nangong Yi gasped. He finally asked, Duan Ling Tian, you mean? You've already recultivated to the void-prying stage some time ago? Yes. Duan Ling Tian nodded. How long ago was that? Nangong Chen finally opened his mouth. 2 weeks ago, I think. Duan Ling Tian answered. The Nangong brothers exchanged glances immediately. They could see the shock in each other's eyes. Freak. The same thought appeared in both their minds at almost the same time. Breaking through from the first-level core formation stage to the void-prying stage in just 2 weeks. Duan Ling Tian, you're really a monster. Nangong Yi mused. Although Nangong Chun did not say anything, one could tell he agreed with Nangong Yi from the gleam in his eyes. Nangong Yi took a deep breath to mentally prepare himself before he asked, Duan Ling Tian, you've already broken through to the void-prying stage 2 weeks ago. Don't tell me you've already entered the void initiation stage or the void interpretation stage now. This time, Duan Ling Tian only flashed him a mysterious smile and did not answer him. Upon seeing this, Nangong Yi did not press the matter any further, even though he was curious. He could tell Duan Ling Tian did not want to answer him. By the time we reach Lingxian Peak, we'll be able to see many martial monarchs from all corners of the continent. If we want to successfully become the disciples and followers of Martial Emperor Lingxian, we can only use them as stepping stones to rise to a high position. Only then will we be able to display our talent. Nangong Yi's anticipation gradually turned into excitement as he spoke. Lingxian Peak. Duan Ling Tian muttered to himself in a voice that was only audible to him as he narrowed his eyes. It'll be the best if I can regain my memory in a year. If I can't, I hope Martial Emperor Ling Xian has ways to let me regain my memory. Although he had lost most of his memory, the leftover memory seemed to be telling him that martial emperors were the loftiest and most supreme beings on Cloud Continent. There was almost nothing they could not do. Naturally, this was only if they wanted to do it. Time continued to pass by quietly. 3 days later, the Nangong brothers deliberately slowed their speed. Duan Ling Tian slowed down as well. Duan Ling Tian, Lingxian Peak is just right in front, Nangong Yi said to Duan Ling Tian as he pointed to the front. The moment Duan Ling Tian heard this, he lifted his head and looked forward. It was extremely foggy. One could hardly see anything beyond it. Lingxian Peak is hidden behind the mist. Yes, Nangong Yi nodded. It said that Lingxian Peak is always hidden behind the mist all year round. Unless you already know where Lingxian Peak is, it's hard to find its location. Usually, Lingxian Peak is heavily guarded, and there are many Martial Emperor's followers patrolling around. It's very difficult for outsiders to trespass. However, due to the recruitment of the Martial Emperor's disciples and followers held by Lingxian Peak, they allow outsiders to come this time. Naturally, we still need to follow their rules and go to the place that they've arranged for us beforehand, even though we're allowed to go in. Nangong Yi slowly explained. Duan Ling Tian nodded his head. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Just as Duan Ling Tian and the 2 others were approaching the dense mist, the sound of wind of whistling reverberated from their front left side. The sound was getting closer and closer. Soon after, the 3 of them saw 5 figures moving toward them. The incomers did not seem like they had good intentions. Don't tell me they're muggers? Duan Ling Tian muttered. In his memory, there were many martial artists who would obstruct people's way and mug them on Cloud Continent. They were usually known as muggers. When the 5 of them came near, a young man who seemed like the leader of the group looked at Duan Ling Tian and the other 2 with bright eyes. Duan Ling Tian, seems like you're right. Nangong Yi smiled wryly. He did not fear ordinary muggers. However, he could not help but fear the muggers around Lingxian Peak. The news of the recruitment of Martial Emperor's disciples and followers by Lingxian Peak had long spread out, and many people knew about this. Since the 5 muggers dared to mug people like them who were passing by, it meant that they were powerful and confident of their strength. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In the next instant, the 5 muggers with the young man at the lead arrived before Duan Ling Tian and the other 2. When they came to a halt, 5 gusts of wind blew toward Duan Ling Tian and the other two, causing their robes to flutter loudly in the air. The young man leading the group glanced at Duan Ling Tian and the other two nonchalantly before he said at a speed that was neither fast nor slow, "Hand over your spatial rings, and you'll live. You'll die if you don't hand them over." The tone in his voice brooked no argument. The young man looked just about 35 years old, fully clad in green. He looked ordinary except for his bright eyes that made him look as though he was about to devour someone. It was obvious the green-clad young man was the leader of this group of muggers. Nangong Yi's face was solemn as he asked in a deep voice, "If you want us to hand over our spatial rings, you need to at least show us your strength, right? Otherwise, how will we know if you're not just a sheep in a wolf's skin? Looks like all of you won't yield until you've seen your coffins." Upon hearing Nangong Yi's words, the green-clad young man's sharp eyes shone brightly. The origin energy on his body suddenly turned chaotic without warning before it transformed into a multicolored energy. To be precise, his origin energy was merged with many profundities that such a phenomenon occurred. Whoosh! The heaven and sky energy whirred above the sky as the heaven and earth phenomenon gradually solidified. First, the silhouette of an ancient black dragon made its appearance, followed by 2,000 ancient horned dragons. Upon seeing this, horror dawned on the Nangong brothers immediately. Nangong even cried out in surprise. In 9th level martial monarch stage, just with his origin energy alone, he could mobilize the heaven and earth energy and formed such a heaven and earth phenomenon. This was the indicator of the 9th level martial monarch stage. There were not many muggers at the 9th level martial monarch stage on the entire Cloud continent, and yet, they had now appeared in front of their eyes. For a moment, the two Nangong brothers felt they were really unlucky. Whoosh! The heaven and earth phenomenon did not stop there. As the heaven and earth energy above continued to whirl, another 3 silhouettes of ancient black dragons appeared above the sky, along with 1,000 silhouettes of ancient horned dragons. Without any spirit weapon, he could unleash the strength of 4 ancient black dragons and 3,000 ancient horned dragons. Among 9th level martial monarchs, such a presence could be considered as one of the powerful ones. At the very least, wanting to become a martial emperor's disciple with such strength was more than enough. Naturally, that was in regards to ordinary martial emperor's disciples. Although such strength was considered good, it was still slightly lacking if one wanted to become the martial emperor's direct disciple. Without any spirit weapon, he could already unleash such strength. If he uses his spirit weapon, then, before Nangong Yi could finish his thoughts, his eyes narrowed immediately. This was because he saw the flash of an afterimage before his eyes. In the next second, a familiar silhouette appeared in front of the green-clad young man who was the leader of the muggers. Duan Ling Tian. Nangong Yi was still in a daze. The green-clad young man still had a complacent look on his face after he had unleashed his full strength and shown his heaven and earth phenomenon when Duan Ling Tian flashed and appeared right before him. The strength of the fused and sword profundities exploded instantly. Before the green-clad young man even realized what was happening, Duan Ling Tian had already appeared before him with strength equivalent to 5 ancient black dragons. When the green-clad young man saw Duan Ling Tian appearing in front of him, horror dawned on him immediately. Before he could make a move, Duan Ling Tian had already attacked. A thunderous attack landed on his body easily. It was as easy breaking twigs. Bang! There was a loud explosion, and the green-clad young man turned into a blood mist that covered the entire sky. From the beginning until the end, he did not even have time to defend himself, let alone counter the attack. A 9th level martial monarch who could mobilize the strength of 4 ancient black dragons and 3,000 ancient horned dragons without any spirit weapon had died just like that in Duan Ling Tian's hands. If he was slightly more vigilant, he would not have ended up like that. Duan Ling Tian currently could only mobilize the strength of 5 ancient black dragons and 1,000 ancient horned dragons even if he unleashed his full strength. As for that green-clad young man, if he had used his grade 1 spirit weapon, he could mobilize the strength of 5 ancient black dragons and 3,000 ancient horned dragons. If he was prepared, Duan Ling Tian would not be his match. One could say that he died undeservingly. Why you actually dare to kill senior brother Lu? When Duan Ling Tian killed the green-clad young man, the other 4 men immediately were lost in a daze. After they regained their senses, horror dawned on their faces as they stared at Duan Ling Tian, as though they had just seen a ghost. Swish! One of the men even threw out a ray from his hand. Communication jade slip. Nangong Yi, who had just regained his senses, turned grave immediately. The communication jade slip's speed increased as time went by and disappeared before everyone's eyes in just a blink of an eye. Nobody had the confidence to chase after it. Bang! Another loud explosion reverberated in the air. Duan Ling Tian made his move again and killed the middle-aged man who sent the communication jade slip. Horror immediately dawned on the remaining 3 men. This purple-clad young man before them was like a murderous god. He did not even bat an eye after killing to them successively. Why you can't kill us? We're Ling Xianpi. One of the middle-aged men hastily opened his mouth. However, before he could finish his sentence, he was already killed by Nangong Chun. Even the other 2 men who were unprepared were killed by him as well. Although Nangong Chun had killed 3 men in just a blink of an eye, the blue robe fluttering on his body was not stained with blood at all. With an aloof expression on his face, he hovered in the air like a statue and an unmoving mountain. You've made a breakthrough? Duan Ling Tian was slightly surprised when he looked at Nangong Chun. Although from the beginning until the end, Nangong Chun's speed was so fast that the heaven and earth energy did not even have time to solidify and gather into the heaven and earth phenomenon. Duan Ling Tian, who had been watching him intently, could sense his cultivation base. 7th level martial monarch stage. Although Duan Ling Tian's dantian had been crippled and his cultivation base needed to be recultivated, his spiritual energy was still the same as before. It was still at the 4th level martial monarch stage. The spiritual energy of a 4th level martial monarch was enough to see through all cultivation levels below the martial emperor stage. Due to this reason, he could easily see that Nangong Chun had made a breakthrough. Yes, 3 days ago. Nangong Chun nodded. He knew that even though he had made a breakthrough to the 7th level martial monarch stage, it would have been difficult for him to kill the 3 men earlier in a direct battle. He could kill them all in just one blow because the 3 of them were focused on Duan Ling Tian. Moreover, they feared Duan Ling Tian as well. If that was not the case, he would not have the confidence to win against any one of them, let alone killing them. Nangong Chun, I originally thought that I'll be able to catch up to you. I can't believe I'm left behind again. Nangong, he said as he looked at Nangong Chun with a complicated expression on his face. Well, an elder brother always needs to be a role model, Nangong Chun replied coolly. Upon hearing his reply, Nangong Yi smiled wryly. Could it be that he had to submit to his fate and acknowledge Nangong Chun as his elder brother? Oh, that's right. Suddenly, Nangong Yi changed the topic. Earlier, one of the men said their Ling Xian peaked something. Don't tell me they are actually the martial emperor's disciples or followers of Ling Xian Peak, he speculated. So what if they were the martial emperor's disciples or followers? They were the ones looking for death. Nobody can blame us for that. Nangong Chun replied coldly. Of course I know this, but the problem is, one of them actually sent out a communication jade slip. I have a feeling someone will find out that we killed all of them soon. Nangong Yi continued to say with dread. Among those people and the green-clad young man, I suppose only the green-clad young man was a martial emperor's disciple. As for the other 4, they must only the martial emperor's followers. Do you think with their status, the martial emperor's direct disciples, or even martial emperor Ling Xian, will attack us? Nangong Chun retorted as he casually glanced at Nangong Yi. Yeah, you have a point. Nangong Yi nodded his head in agreement before he continued again. However, all these are just our own speculation. We can't be sure if they were really the martial emperor's disciples or followers. Let's go. Duan Ling Tian and the other 2 continued to head forward and went through the clouds and mist, entering the dusky world. With their eyesight, they could see a dangerously steep peak situated behind the mist in no time at all. The peak towered in the clouds, like a sharp sword in the sky. I heard that martial emperor Ling Xian is a powerful sword cultivator. Previously, he comprehended his emperor stage sword profundity here at this peak. Ever since then, like a carp leaping over the dragon's gate, he made a success of himself in no time at all. Nangong Yi muttered as he looked at the dangerously steep peak that rose up like a sword. In the end, after he made a breakthrough to the martial emperor stage and became a martial emperor, he continues to stay at this peak to cultivate and made this peak his cultivation place. He even named this place Ling Xian Peak. Nangong Yi continued to mutter. In the end, A hint of admiration could be seen on his face. Duan Ling Tian was not that interested in this. The reason he came to Lingxian Peak was so that Martial Emperor Lingxian could help check his past for him. As for everything else, he was not bothered at all. Stand there. Just as Duan Ling Tian and the other two were approaching Lingxian Peak, they were stopped by a middle-aged man patrolling around Lingxian Peak. I'm a Martial Emperor's follower from Lingxian Peak. Who are you? We're here to join the selection of the Martial Emperor's disciples and followers that are going to be held 6 months later. Nangong stated their intentions clearly. Upon hearing this, the middle-aged man first looked at Nangong. After he was done examining Nangong, he looked at Duan Ling Tian and Nangong Chun before nodding his head finally. Follow me, don't wander around. Then, he proceeded to turn and fly toward Lingxian Peak. Duan Ling Tian and the other two followed closely from behind. Soon after, under the guidance of the Martial Emperor's follower from Lingxian Peak, the three of them reached the mid-mountain of Lingxian Peak, where a vast stone platform stood. There were groups of 3 to 5 people who kept landing on the stone platform. These people came here together with Lingxian Peak's people as well. It was obvious that they were here to join the selection of the Martial Emperor's disciples and followers too. The Martial Emperor's follower who brought Duan Ling Tian and the other two over said, "Wait here for a minute. Somebody will come and ask you to show your cultivation base later. Your accommodation for the next 6 months will be arranged according to your cultivation base." After he finished, he immediately flew away without waiting for the three of them to reply. Among the group of people who came here, a few people left as well. Only the people who came to join the selection of the Martial Emperor's disciples and followers remained. Time continued to pass by quietly. Soon after, some more people were brought here again. From the beginning until the end, Duan Ling Tian merely shut his eyes to attain mental composure as he patiently waited. Naturally, that was not the only thing he was doing. He was also cultivating and comprehending the sword Dao from the word sword as well. Boy, why does your mind have such a horrifying sword intent? Wang Ba suddenly said. Hints of dread could be heard in his voice. Actually, he had long noticed the sword intent in Duan Ling Tian's mind, but he was not too bothered about it initially. However, as time went by, he realized the sword intent seemed to pose a great threat to him. If Duan Ling Tian controlled this sword intent to shatter his soul would definitely turn into ashes. Sword intent? Oh, you mean the sword concept? Duan Ling Tian asked, puzzled. What sword concept? Sword intent is sword intent. Don't tell me you don't even know the origin of the sword intent stored in your mind. Wang Ba snapped. I really can't remember at all. I only know that comprehending it will help raise my sword profundity. Duan Ling Tian replied. Why? It's really that powerful. Duan Ling Tian asked again. It's not only powerful, okay? Forget it. Even if I explain to you now, you won't understand. All in all, the sword intent in your mind must have been left behind by an awfully powerful Saint Stage powerhouse. Hints of dread could be heard Wang Ba's voice. Whoosh. As a faint wind swept out, Duan Ling Tian seemed to have noticed something. It prompted him to open his eyes. With just a glance, he saw 3 men descending from the sky. They appeared before everyone's eyes and stood there as though they had merged with their surroundings. Duan Ling Tian instantly extended his spiritual energy and probed one of the old men's cultivation base. 9th level Martial Monarch, Martial Emperor's disciple. Duan Ling Tian speculated. When he was about to probe the second old man, his spiritual energy suddenly trembled. He discovered when his spiritual energy approached the old man emitted a vast spiritual energy. Inscription Master. Duan Ling Tian's heart jolted. This old man was an inscription master. Moreover, his spiritual energy was stronger than him as well. It was a good thing he managed to retrieve his spiritual energy in time. Otherwise, he would have been discovered. The old man who was an inscription master stood between 2 old men. With a slight frown, he glanced at the surroundings. He was only at ease when he saw that nothing was amiss. This old man was the leader among the 3 old men. He announced to the group of people, including Duan Ling Tian. Later, all of you will display your origin energy and mobilize the heaven and earth energy to solidify and form the heaven and earth phenomenon. None of you are allowed to use profundities. Your cultivation base will affect the surroundings of your cultivation place in the next 6 months. Cultivation base? Most of the people, including Duan Ling Tian, did not feel that anything was amiss. However, the 2 Nangong brothers could not help but frown immediately. Nangong even asked loudly, "Why do you only look at the cultivation base? Isn't profundities part of our strength as well? The old man in the lead did not expect that someone would be so impudent in front of him. His face darkened, and he asked coldly, "Why? You have objections to my decision?" He looked at Nangong-yi with cold and piercing eyes. It was as though he would kill Nangong-yi if he dared to say another word. Although Nangong-yi was discontented, he did not dare to say anything more. The old man before him emitted a terrifying pressure. Moreover, he only said that because he felt it was unfair to Duan Ling Tian. After all, Duan Ling Tian's current cultivation base was only at the void prying stage or void interpretation stage at most. If they only looked at cultivation base, it would be unfair to him. Duan Ling Tian's strength mainly lay with his profundity. However, he soon realized that Duan Ling Tian did not seem to be bothered about this. Due to this reason, he no longer troubled himself with this matter. Since Duan Ling Tian was not worried about it, why should he? In the next instant, the people who came to Lingxian Peak to join the selection of the Martial Emperor's disciples and follower in 6 months' time began to display their cultivation base one by one. They mobilized their heaven and earth energies to solidify into the heaven and earth phenomenon. Soon after, everyone, apart from Duan Ling Tian and the other two, had already demonstrated their cultivation base. These people had cultivation base that was between the 3rd and the 8th level martial monarch stage. After they had demonstrated their cultivation base, they were divided into 3 groups by the old man and stood nearby. Those who were below the 4th level martial monarch stage were grouped into 1. Those who were the above 4th level, but below the 7th level martial monarch stage, were grouped into 1. Those who were at the 7th level martial monarch stage and above were grouped into 1. Among the 3, the group in the middle had the most people. Nangong Chun and Nangong-yi began to demonstrate their cultivation base in front of the 3 Lingxian Peaks old men before Duan Ling Tian's turn. Nangong Chun was at the 7th level martial monarch stage. Nangong-yi was at the 6th level martial monarch stage. Just like Nangong Chun, he had also recently made a breakthrough. The Nangong brothers were separated into 2 groups. Due to the reason that the Nangong brothers were twins, they attracted a lot of attention from the moment they made their appearance until when they demonstrated their cultivation base. Only you are left. Soon after, the old man leading the group shifted his gaze toward Duan Ling Tian. At this moment, Duan Ling Tian was the only one who had yet to demonstrate his cultivation base. Most people, including the Nangong brothers, shifted their gaze toward Duan Ling Tian. Duan Ling Tian received a great deal of attention since he was the last person to demonstrate his cultivation base. Duan Ling Tian strode forward and faced the 3 old men in front. Origin energy rose up from his body and soon enveloped him. It looked like he was standing in the middle of a white mist. Upon seeing this, apart from the 2 Nangong brothers, everyone, including the 3 old men from Lingxian Peak, was stunned and bewildered. This was because they could see the origin energy from this purple-clad young man was not even comparable to many void interpretation stage martial artists' origin energies. Whoosh! Meanwhile, the heaven and earth energy whirled above Duan Ling Tian's head before it solidified into the heaven and earth phenomenon in just a blink of an eye. Everyone's gaze, including the 2 Nangong brothers, landed above Duan Ling Tian right away. To be more precise, they were looking at the heaven and earth phenomenon solidified from the heaven and earth energy that was mobilized by the origin energy released by Duan Ling Tian. For a moment, the entire scene fell silent. The 2 Nangong brothers who were mentally prepared were the first to regain their senses. With a dumbfounded expression, Nangong-yi muttered to himself, "First level void interpretation stage." Duan Ling Tian actually broke through to the void interpretation stage. Shock and disbelief were apparent in his tone. In just 1 month, he went from the 1st level core formation stage to the 1st level void interpretation stage. Such a speed in cultivating was like a monster. Although Nangong Chen appeared calm, a glimmer of disbelief could still be seen in his eyes. Just a short month and his cultivation base had already undergone such an earth-shattering transformation. If it was not for the fact that he had witnessed this himself, he would not have believed it at all. Soon after, somebody else returned to his senses and asked strangely, "I didn't see wrongly, right? This is the 1st level void interpretation stage. Just a mere 1st level void interpretation martial artist. And he still dares to join the selection of the Martial Emperor's disciples and followers here at Lingxian Peak? Isn't he just digging his own grave?" Many people mocked. Exactly. Such a low cultivation base. If he goes against me, I might accidentally kill him. Humph. A first-level void interpretation stage martial artist is no different from an ant to me. I can crush an ant like that with just a finger. Somebody glared at Duan Ling Tian fiercely. To sum it up, after Duan Ling Tian demonstrated his cultivation base at the first-level void interpretation, the other people, apart from the Nangong brothers, found it unbelievable. I must say, at the time when the selection of the Martial Emperor's disciples and followers begins, he might not even have the courage to go on stage and fight us, somebody speculated. I also think he won't have the guts to battle us. Moreover, I feel like he only came to Ling Xian Peak to join in on the fun. I don't think he has the courage to go on stage and fight with us. If I knew earlier that we can just come to join in the fun, I would have brought more people with me. The group of people who came to join the selection of the Martial Emperor's disciples and followers 6 months later in Ling Xian Peak could not stop themselves from discussing this. Hints of disdain could be seen in most people's eyes when they looked at Duan Ling Tian. This first-level void interpretation stage martial artist was like an eyesore standing before this group martial monarchs. Even the weakest among them was at the third-level martial monarch stage. Among the 3 old men, other than the old man whose face was grave, one of the 2 remaining old men asked, "Young man, are you sure you're here to join the selection of the Martial Emperor's disciples and followers that's going to be held 6 months later in our Ling Xian Peak?" "Yes." Duan Ling Tian nodded nonchalantly. "Humph, you're just a mere first-level void interpretation. What qualifications do you have to join the selection of the Martial Emperor's disciples and followers of Ling Xian Peak?" Another old man snorted. "Why, does your selection of the Martial Emperor's disciples and followers of Ling Xian Peak have a restriction on cultivation base? A void interpretation stage martial artist is not allowed to join." Duan Ling Tian retorted as he looked at the old man. The old man frowned when he heard this. There seemed to be no such rules or restrictions in the selection of the Martial Emperor's disciples and followers of Ling Xian Peak. The old man in the lead who had remained silent all this while cast an indifferent glance at Duan Ling Tian before he said, "It's indeed true that the selection of the Martial Emperor's disciples and followers that will be held by our Ling Xian Peak didn't state that a void interpretation stage martial artist is not allowed to join. However, once you've joined, it means that you'll have to go on stage and battle your opponent. You're not allowed to surrender before you battle. Can you do this?" Judging from his words, it was obvious he wanted Duan Ling Tian to withdraw after hearing about the difficulties. Not allowed to admit defeat before your battle. This meant he wanted Duan Ling Tian to directly fight the others. He believed that as long as this void interpretation stage martial artist was sane, he would definitely withdraw after hearing this. After all, he was only destined to die if he did not withdraw. After the old man in the lead spoke, everyone's eyes contained hints of disdain and contempt, except for the 2 Nangong brothers, when they looked at Duan Ling Tian. "Do you think he'll pull out after knowing that the odds are against him?" "Well, of course, now that the senior from Ling Xian Peak said such things, if he still doesn't pull out, he'll be the biggest idiot in the world." "I think so too. I'll be the banker and bet that this purple-clad young man won't leave. The betting rate is 1 to 10. If you dare to be the banker, you must bet that this purple-clad young man will leave and make it a betting rate of 10 to 1. Do you dare?" The crowd buried their heads together in discussion. Some people even offered to become a banker. Naturally, most people did not dare to bet. They felt that it would only make them lose money. "Are you sure you want to become the banker?" However, they discovered somebody wanted to make a bet soon after. The people who wanted to make a bet were none other than the 2 Nangong brothers. They looked at the middle-aged man who offered to become the banker earlier for confirmation. "What, you 2 want to make a bet?" The middle-aged man laughed. Although he knew these twins were together with the purple-clad young man, he did not think the purple-clad young man would choose to stay just because of the bet. After all, staying would mean his death. If a void interpretation stage martial artist fought with a martial monarch, he would be blasted until not even a piece of him was left. He would be turned into dust in just a blink of an eye. There would not be time for him to even surrender. In this world, there was nothing more important than one's life. Due to this reason, he believed the purple-clad young man would definitely withdraw after learning the odds were against him. "Well, if there are enough origin stones in your hands, I'll bet 10 supreme-grade origin stones and 300,000 high-grade origin stones." Nangong chimed in nonchalantly as he looked at the middle-aged man. 20 supreme-grade origin stones and 200,000 high-grade origin stones. Nangong Chun chimed in coolly. "Clamor." The moment the words left these two people's mouths, a commotion erupted immediately. The three old men who were possibly the Martial Emperor's disciples of Ling Xian Peak immediately shifted their attention to the Nangong brothers as well. They did not expect them to be so crazy as well. They originally thought the Nangong brothers were merely acting and were just trying to boost the morale of their companion. However, they did not expect the Nangong brother would take out so many origin stones as a wager. Both of their wager amount to 30 supreme-grade origin stones and 500,000 high-grade origin stones. If they win, they'll get 300 supreme-grade origin stones and 5 million high-grade origin stones in return, somebody muttered. His words entered the crowd's ears. Many people did not agree with him. That's only if they win. I think they dare to make such a bet because of the faith they have in the purple-clad young man. However, I've no idea why they are so confident in him. Somebody speculated. Well, in my opinion, they intentionally took out such a large number of origin stones to make the banker withdraw in the face of this difficulty, so their companion can retain a bit of his dignity, many people said. The middle-aged man who offered to be the banker leered at the Nangong brothers greedily and replied with a fiery gaze, "Sure, I'll accept your bet." In his opinion, these two guys were just giving him the origin stones. "You can accept my bet, but first, you must show me proof that you can actually compensate us. 300 supreme-grade origin stones plus 5 million high-grade origin stones." Nangong, he said nonchalantly. "I won't lose," the middle-aged man retorted. "Then, does this mean that you want to bet with us empty-handedly? Do you think that there really is such a thing as a free lunch in the world?" Nangong, he snorted. "It looks like you guys have no intention to bet at all." The middle-aged man smirked. Of course, he was unable to take 300 supreme-grade origin stones and 5 million high-grade origin stones out at all. In addition to that, he was certain that nobody there could take so many origin stones out in just one go. Not even the three old men who seemed to be Martial Emperor's disciples of Ling Tian Peak. It seems like they had no intention to bet from the beginning after all. They already knew that this guy wouldn't be able to take so many origin stones out as compensation. And here I was, thinking that they had faith in their companion. But it actually turned out otherwise. Many people were whispering to one another, not intending to bet at all. Nangong grinned with a smile so bright that his eyes became slits instantly. "How about this? We'll still place our bets, and if we lose, you can take all of our origin stones away. If you lose, besides leaving behind your spatial ring, your life is ours too." As Nangong reached the end of his sentence, a devilish smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. The moment his words left his mouth, everyone else, including the three old men, were taken by shock. Only Duan Ling Tian and Nangong Chun remained calm. Of course, among those stunned included the middle-aged man who had offered to be the banker. With a flash in his eyes, the middle-aged man asked in a deep voice, "You want me to put my life on the line? Dare you?" Nangong asked indifferently. At once, both of them were waging a tit-for-tat stalemate against each other. Most of the people had their gazes fixed on them as well. Why not? Soon, the middle-aged man gritted his teeth and agreed to the challenge. At the same time, he looked towards the three old men who seemed to be Martial Emperor's disciples of Ling Xian Peak. "Sirs, please be the witness of this wager between them and me." The leading middle-aged man among the three of them nodded coolly. "Sure." The old man looked at the two Nangong brothers and warned them, "If you lose and aren't able to take that many origin stones out for him, I'll cripple your dantian and banish all of you from Ling Xian Peak." Then, he turned to the middle-aged man again. "If you lose, your life is theirs." At this moment, the middle-aged man looked at the old man and asked respectfully, "Sir, if somebody insists on joining the selection of the Martial Emperor's disciples and followers that will be held 6 months later, what will happen to him when that time comes and he chickens out at the final moment? Once you've decided to join the selection of the Martial Emperor's disciples and followers 6 months later, retreat is not an option. Nobody is allowed to regret his decision. Even if he does, he'd need to at least join one round of the selection. Otherwise, he'll be treated as making fun of the Ling Xian Peak. Whoever who makes fun of Ling Xian Peak will only have one consequence: death." When the old man reached the end of his sentence, he emphasized the last word, and at the same time, he deliberately cast a glance at Duan Ling Tian, who was standing quietly by the side, trying to warn him. This man was a first-level martial monarch sage who dared to come to join the selection of the Martial Emperor's disciples and followers. In his opinion, this man did not even respect their Ling Xian Peak at all. As a Martial Emperor's disciple of Ling Xian Peak, He felt like Ling Xian Peak, which he viewed as a saint place, had been defiled. Thinking of that, the flame of fury inside him threatened to break out any time. Haha, awesome. I'll make a bet with them then. Upon hearing the old man, the middle-aged man burst out laughing and agreed readily. In his eyes, his avarice was even more apparent, as though he could already see the 30 supreme grade origin stones and 500,000 high-grade origin stones entering his pocket. What are you so happy about? Do you really think that you've won? Nangong smirked before looking at the old man. We'll bet with him as well. The old man nodded, and at the same time, he looked towards Duan Ling Tian, who was standing by the side. He announced, "Do you insist on joining the selection of the Martial Emperor's disciples and followers that will be held at Ling Xian Peak in 6 months? If you insist on joining, withdrawal is prohibited. You'll need to at least join one round of the selection. It could be either a life or death test designed for a martial monarch, or even a battle against a martial monarch." To him, if this purple-clad young man in front did not want to die, he definitely would not insist on joining the selection. A first-level void interpretation martial artist joining the selection of the Martial Emperor's disciples and followers would very likely end up dead. The rest of the crowd had their attention trained on Duan Ling Tian as well. Everybody else, except for the two Nangong brothers, felt that he would definitely give up joining the selection of the Martial Emperor's disciples and followers. I've won already. The moment he saw the slight twitch of Duan Ling Tian's lips as he was about to open his mouth, the middle-aged man's eyes lit up immediately. An extremely dazzling smile appeared on his face. However, the moment Duan Ling Tian spoke, his smile froze at once. "Count me in." Duan Ling Tian looked squarely at the old leader of the 3 elderly men and replied nonchalantly. Boom. Duan Ling Tian's words struck down on most of the crowd like a thunderbolt, particularly the middle-aged man. Other than having his smile froze on his face, his eyes were filled with dread as well. He feared the death that he was going to face soon. "You're crazy. You're absolutely insane." The middle-aged man cursed Duan Ling Tian out loud before suddenly speeding off without warning as he tried to leave the scene. He did not want to lose his life. However, would he be able to just leave as he wished? The second the middle-aged man moved, a worn figure appeared out of thin air before him and blocked his path. It was one of the 2 men from the trio apart from the old man. "Okay, very good." After the old leader was taken by surprise, his face turned grave before he stared at Duan Ling Tian coldly. "I'll watch over every action of yours in the next 6 months. Before you join at least one round of the selection of the Martial Emperor's disciples and followers, don't even think of leaving Ling Xian Peak at all. I'll count on you then." Duan Ling Tian shrugged and replied indifferently. His casualness took the crowd, who was coming to their senses one, by bewilderment. This guy doesn't seem to fear death at all. He doesn't just stare death in the face, but he also seems to be full of confidence as well. Don't tell me that he's actually confident that he'll be able to survive one round of the selection and live. How's that possible? Forget the fact that he's a first-level void interpretation stage martial artist. Even if he's a first-level void transformation stage or a 9th-level void transformation stage martial artist, he'll most likely still die in the selection of the Martial Emperor's disciples and followers held at Ling Xian Peak. Then, is this guy intentionally seeking death? Well, given the circumstances now, he must be. At once, the group of people present were convinced that Duan Ling Tian was deliberately looking for death. After all, to them, Duan Ling Tian was merely a first-level void interpretation stage martial artist. By right, even if a first-level void interpretation martial artist had a high level of comprehension, he could only grasp the void interpretation stage concepts. Such a person was no different than an ant in their eyes. "I hope that you'll still be this calm in 6 months. I'm looking forward to it," the old man commented in a deep voice. After saying that, he no longer had his attention on Duan Ling Tian. In a flash, he appeared in front of the middle-aged man who had made a bet with the Nangong brothers. His eyes were as cold as ice and were devoid of emotions. The middle-aged man glanced at the leading old man standing close to him and said with a terrified expression, "Sir, I was merely joking. I withdraw my bet. I don't want to bet anymore." At this moment, his eyes were filled with dread that originated from the bottom of his heart and his soul. The fact that another person had no fear towards death did not mean that he shared the same sentiments. If he had known earlier that this purple-clad young man was so gutsy, he would not have accepted the bet with the 2 Nangong brothers. Boom. In the face of the man's begging, the leading old man did not give a damn. With a raise of his hand, he quickly blasted him to death. As for the spatial ring and profundity fragments that were left behind by the middle-aged man, he guided it towards the Nangong brothers using an invisible force with just a flick of his hand. The scene made the crowd gasp in horror. This ending was far from their imagination. "Thank you, sir." After Nangong, he had stored the spatial ring and the profundity fragments. He smiled and thanked the old man, who nodded nonchalantly. In the next instance, he swept a glance around, and his gaze landed on the few martial artists who were on the 7th level martial monarch stage and above, including Nangong Chun. "The few of you, follow him to where you'll be staying for the next 6 months. As he reached the end of his sentence, he looked wordlessly at one of the old men beside him. At once, the old man brought Nangong Chun and the few of them away. "All of you, follow him." Then, the leading old man looked at Nangong and a few more others before turning to the other old man. The group of people, including Nangong were all between the 4th and 7th level martial monarch stages. "Duan Ling Tian, I'll leave first." Before Nangong left with the group of people and the old man, he smiled and acknowledged Duan Ling Tian as though he was not worried about the situation that the latter was facing. Upon seeing this, confusion filled the depths of the old man's eyes right away. Was this guy not worried about his companion at all? Was it because he had absolute faith in his companion? Or did he just not care about the life or death of his companion? At once, the old man's gaze shifted towards Duan Ling Tian unknowingly, and his heart jolted. He felt that it must be the latter. If a first-level void interpretation stage martial artist can set a hurricane or something off at Lingxian Peak, that would be extremely strange, he thought to himself. Soon, the old man looked at the few people, including Duan Ling Tian, before he announced, "All of you, follow me." There were only 3 people who remained behind, including Duan Ling Tian. They were all below the 4th level martial monarch stage, so their accommodation for the next 6 months was entirely different from the other 2 groups of people. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The trio followed the old man and headed towards the other side of Lingxian Peak. In the next 6 months, another martial emperor's disciple of Lingxian Peak, and I will protect you. I'm Xiao Zhong, a martial emperor's disciple of Lingxian Peak, the old man introduced to them. A martial emperor's disciple. Upon hearing Xiao Zhong's words, other than Duan Ling Tian, who remained calm from the very beginning, the other 2 were slightly taken aback. However, the moment they recalled what Xiao Zhong had said earlier, they exchanged glances with each other and were rendered speechless. Protect. As the martial emperor's cultivation place, outsiders were not usually allowed at Lingxian Peak, so how could there be anyone that could pose as a threat to them? Nobody could harm them, so there was no need for protection at all. The word protect is inaccurate. Monitoring is more like it, the 2 of them thought to themselves. Not long ago, Xiao Zhong had announced that whoever who came to join the selection of the martial emperor's disciples and followers at Lingxian Peak was not allowed to withdraw at the last minute. One must go through at least 1 round of the selection of the martial emperor's disciples and followers. Xiao Zhong spoke again. "Introduce yourselves." The 2 of men could not help but be stunned again. They believed that Xiao Zhong had some other intention of asking them to introduce themselves. It was far beneath Xiao Zhong's dignity to learn the names of unimportant people like them. Right then, the reason Xiao Zhong had asked for their names was pretty obvious. He actually wanted to know the name of the other purple-clad young man. As expected, after the 2 men introduced themselves, Xiao Zhong merely nodded his head indifferently, not giving a damn at all. His gaze quickly landed on Duan Ling Tian, who had yet to speak, before he asked coolly, "What's your name?" "Duan Ling Tian." From the beginning till the end, Duan Ling Tian never lifted up his head to look at Xiao Zhong at all. Xiao Zhong was a little infuriated. How dare this boy, who was only on the 1st level void interpretation, act so unbridled in front of him? A good name, but it's a pity that you've made the wrong choice," Xiao Zhong snorted. Upon hearing Xiao Zhong's words, Duan Ling Tian ignored him completely, turning a deaf ear to him. The other 2 agreed with Xiao Zhong as well. They did not think Duan Ling Tian would be able to survive the next 6 months, and at once, there was a hint of pity in their eyes. Soon, Xiao Zhong brought them to the middle of the mountain on the other side of Lingxian Peak. There were 2 spacious stone platforms separated by a long staircase. On top of the platform stood a multi-story pavilion that was surrounded by a layer of white mist. It was like a magnificent jade palace in a paradise. The white mist surrounding the pavilion gathered from all over the place. An origin drawing formation. Frowning, Duan Ling Tian could see that there was an inscription formation on the pavilion above the stone platform in just one glance. This inscription formation gathered all of the origin energy that arose from the supreme and high-grade origin stones and transformed into a great cultivation site. Cultivating in this pavilion would yield twice the results with just half the effort. However, this was only for an ordinary martial artist. To Duan Ling Tian, even if the origin drawing formation gathered the origin energy that came from the supreme grade origin stone, it still would not be of much help to him. At that moment, his cultivation base was advancing at a tremendous pace. It was not something an ordinary person could match. Even if the origin energy originated from the supreme grade origin stones, it would only be adding brilliance to an already perfect state. To him, it was not worth mentioning at all. That stone platform that has the pavilion situated atop, it has an origin drawing formation. This origin drawing formation was personally set up by the Martial Emperor stage inscription formation, who our Lingxian Peak's Lord Martial Emperor invited over. While Duan Ling Tian was studying the pavilion, Xiaozhong started to introduce it as well. When you cultivate on top of it, your cultivation base will make progress at an extremely fast rate. It's no inferior to absorbing the supreme grade origin stone directly as you cultivate. Gasps filled the air. Upon hearing Xiaozhong's words, the other two men could not help but inhale a deep breath. They gazed at the pavilion in the distance, their eyes filled with a burning heat. As for the other stone platform, with the shift of Xiaozhong's gaze, the three of them shifted their gaze to the platform below the staircase as well. Compared to the stone platform above, this stone platform was much worse. In other words, it was so abominable. Juxtaposed to the stone platform above, it was a complete difference between heaven and earth. On this stone platform, there stood many thatched cottages that were casually built from weeds and wood. These thatched cottages were scattered around the stone platform and appeared to be very miserable and shabby. All of you, go and randomly find a thatched cottage to stay in. In the next 6 months, you're not allowed to leave within a 1,000-meter radius from this place. Otherwise, you'll be regarded as fleeing and the consequences will be none other than death. Zhong Qiao warned in a harsh tone. Don't take your chances at all. Xiao Zhong's gaze landed particularly on Duan Ling Tian before he continued. In the next 6 months, this place will be guarded by another Martial Emperor's disciple from Lingxian Peak and me. Usually, one of us will pick more people up while the other will stay here to guard. Lord Xiaozhong, are we going to stay in these tea-thatched cottages? The other two stared at the thatched cottages in front of them in horror and could not help but frown with a look of apparent disgust on their faces. Why? Do you find them dirty? Xiaozhong sneered. If you really find them dirty, you can change your accommodation environment as you see fits. On top of that, I want to warn you about something. He paused for a moment before continuing again. Killing is allowed here. Even if the weaker ones die, we won't give a damn at all. As he spoke, he looked at Duan Ling Tian again. The other two men appeared nasty as they turned to look at Duan Ling Tian in unison too. For a moment, their mood was lifted. Compared to the purple-clad young man, they were no doubt much safer. After all, they were both on the 3rd-level martial monarch stage. The strongest martial artist, there was a 3rd-level martial monarch anyway. Go! After Xiao Zhong spat out a single word, he left and disappeared without a trace. At once, Duan Ling Tian and the other two descended. Little brother Duan, you're too rash. Given your strength now, you might not even be able to survive here for the next 6 months. One of the men looked at Duan Ling Tian and sighed. Take your ego down a notch and live properly. That way, you might still be able to live slightly longer. If I were you, I'd find a thatched cottage to stay and never leave it at all up until the day the selection of the Martial Emperor's disciples and followers starts. The other man snorted. The gaze that he looked at Duan Ling Tian with was filled with mockery. He was taunting him for overestimating himself too much. Noticing Duan Ling Tian's silence, they soon lost interest and did not comment anymore. Quickly, the trio landed on the stone platform scattered with the thatched cottages. It stinks. The moment they got near, the other two frowned right away. Disgust was written all over their faces. Duan Ling Tian also picked up the stench that rushed towards them. The foul odor came from the thatched cottages in front of them. To be more precise, it came from the weeds above the thatched cottages. These weeds had the droppings of various birds stuck in between them and were extremely pungent. Compared to here, the pavilion above that stone platform is basically heaven. The other two looked towards the stone platform that had a staircase leading up to it in unison. There stood a residence, a cultivation place that one would crave for in their dreams. However, that must be the residence of Ling Xian Peak's Martial Emperor's disciple who is responsible for watching over us. One of the men speculated. I think so too. The other man nodded. We need to stay at this disgusting place for 6 months? Are you kidding me? They looked at the thatched cottages in front and sighed. Let's not stay in the thatched cottage. Let's cultivate at those rocks somewhere far away. Or perhaps we could just hover in the air cross-legged and cultivate. One of them suggested. That's a great idea. The other person's eyes lit up right away. Do you think that you're the only one who thought of this idea? Right then, Duan Ling Tian finally spoke up. Look at the shoe imprints in front of the doors of these thatched cottages. It's apparent that many people are living inside. Do you think they would have stayed inside willingly? Just as the two were taken aback, a familiar voice entered their ears clearly. Those who don't have the intention to battle or to kill, but are still wandering around to hang out 10 meters away from the residence will die. They could tell that it was Qiao Zhong's voice. Although Qiao Zhong's words were short, his meaning was apparent. They had to either battle or kill somebody, or just stay 10 meters within the thatched cottage obediently and enjoy the distinct smell of the thatched cottage. Upon hearing Qiao Zhong's words, the other two men beside Duan Ling Tian turned pale right away. Hastily, they each found an unoccupied thatched cottage and entered, burying themselves inside completely. Duan Ling Tian also found a thatched cottage and walked into it. The thatched cottage was completely empty. If he wanted to cultivate, he would have to hover in the air cross-legged to cultivate. The odor in the thatched cottage became even stronger. However, it did not seem to bother him at all, to the point that even he found it strange too. How odd. The smell doesn't actually bother me at all. What Duan Ling Tian did not know was that in the memory which he lost, there was a part of his memory that belonged to his past reincarnation when he was still on Earth. During his past reincarnation, he was the strongest weapons specialist on Earth. Throughout his life of being in the special forces as a mercenary, he had gone through countless hardships on an arduous journey. He had been through worse environments before. To himself in the past reincarnation, this rank odor from the thatched cottage was nothing. Even though he had now lost that part of his memory, he could still accept the odor by instinct and was not truly repulsed by it. Hovering cross-legged in the air, Duan Ling Tian gradually shut his eyes, clearing his eyes as he meditated. 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique, the 7th form. Currently, his cultivation base was only at the 1st level void interpretation stage, so he could only cultivate the 7th form of the 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique in the meantime. Only until he had made a breakthrough to the void transformation stage would he be able to cultivate the 8th form. To him, the void transformation stage was not far away. Bang! Duan Ling Tian did not know how long he had been cultivating for. It was only when a long bang resonated and the door of his thatched cottage was kicked open that he finally regained his senses. While Duan Ling Tian was cultivating, he did not forget to raise his fused and sword profundity. Now that he was interrupted suddenly and broken out of his intense concentration, it was no surprise that he was pissed. Because of this, the moment when he regained his senses and opened his eyes, Duan Ling Tian's face darkened instantly. Get out! A boisterous voice rang impatiently from outside the thatched cottage. With a slam, the door was kicked open. A chilly glimmer flashed across Duan Ling Tian's eyes as he sat cross-legged in the air. He gradually descended and stood on the floor before walking out of the thatched cottage slowly. After he exited, in just one glance, he saw the sole person standing outside the thatched cottage. It was a brawny man with a sturdy body but a wretched and ugly face. The man had a pair of triangular eyes that were glaring at him with an icy, sharp light gleaming in them. Boy, I really must admire you. Just a mere 1st level void interpretation stage martial artist, and you still dare to join the selection of the Martial Emperor's disciples and followers. The ugly, muscular man had nothing but mockery for him. Oh, upon hearing him, Duan Ling Tian frowned right away. Not many people knew about the fact that he was a 1st level void interpretation stage martial artist. At that rundown place, only 2 people knew about it. At once, Duan Ling Tian cast a glance at his surroundings. He noticed most of the occupants walking out of the thatched houses. All of them were looking at the commotion happening at his place right then. Soon, he recognized 2 people among those who were watching the commotion. They were the 3rd level martial monarchs who Qiao Zhong had brought there together with him. They were also the only 2 people there who knew about his identity. One of the men was looking at him in pity, while the other was watching him with a face full of derision. This man is here looking for trouble with me. Are you the ones who instigated it? Duan Ling Tian glared coldly at the latter and asked in a deep voice. It was needless to speculate because he knew that the stocky man had come looking for him after somebody had leaked his identity on purpose. Upon hearing him, the man, who was looking at Duan Ling Tian mockingly, admitted straightforwardly, "So what if it's me? Duan Ling Tian, the thatched houses here are all already full with people. This brother just arrived, and he has no place to stay. By right, you, who are only the void interpretation stage martial artist, should clear out the thatched cottage for him." As he spoke, the ridicule in his expression became even more apparent. He particularly emphasized the 5 words, void interpretation stage martial artist. Boy, since I've made a breakthrough to the martial monarch stage, I've yet to cast any attack on a void interpretation stage martial artist before. Today, let me have a taste of what crushing an ant to its death with just one finger feels like. The ugly, brawny man slowly grinned, his wretched face twisted with a crooked smile that was even uglier than a crying expression. At the same time, he took a stride forward towards Duan Ling Tian. Boom! At that instant, his origin energy transformed into milky white flames that soared up as it emitted a vast, heavy aura, causing the surrounding air to vibrate as it set off a series of faint detonations. As 3,000 silhouettes of ancient horned dragons appeared above the brawny man's head, he thrust out a palm and swept downwards towards Duan Ling Tian like a fanned leaf in full fury. Using just his origin energy, he managed to mobilize the heaven and earth energy together to form 3,000 silhouettes of ancient horned dragons. That was an indicator of him being on the 2nd level martial monarch stage. The onlookers thought to themselves, he's going to die. He's only at the 1st level void interpretation. Yet he still dares to join the selection of the Martial Emperor's disciples and followers? Isn't he afraid of dying? In the sky, 2 old men were hovering right there, looking at how the brawny man made his move towards Duan Ling Tian. One of the old men told the other, "Xiao Zhong, it looks like he won't be able to make it to the selection of the Martial Emperor's disciples and followers in 3 months." The other old man was none other than Xiao Zhong, the person who had brought Duan Ling Tian there. The moment Xiao Zhong heard his companion, he replied nonchalantly, "That's his decision." Then, losing their interest, the 2 old men retracted their gazes. In their opinions, there was no suspense in whatever was going to happen next. They had no doubt that Duan Ling Tian would definitely be killed by the muscular man who possessed a 2nd level martial monarch stage cultivation base. Boom! In the next second, a loud sound reverberated. Everyone's ears echoed with a deafening noise. The 2 men shifted their gazes towards the bottom again. This. They froze almost at the same time as a shocked expression crept upon their faces tacitly. What they saw completely went beyond their imaginations. The person, who they thought would have died, did not die. Instead, the person who should have triumphed had succumbed to death. To be more precise, he had transformed into a bloody mist that enveloped the entire sky. He had died without even leaving a corpse for burial. As the ugly man transformed into a widespread bloody mist, Duan Ling Tian stood in the same spot and spat out a single word nonchalantly in a calm tone. "Idiot." At that moment, everyone present could see that although the brawny man had exploded into a bloody mist at only just a foot away from the purple-clad young man, not the slightest trace of blood could be seen at all on the latter. He's a void interpretation stage martial artist? You must be joking. That guy on the 2nd level martial monarch stage didn't even have the time to react before he perished by his hand. Did you see his moves clearly? I only saw a residual image that disappeared the moment it appeared. A commotion broke out on the spot. The way the group of people viewed Duan Ling Tian had changed by 180 degrees. They were filled with respect and fear. How is this even possible? The 3rd level martial monarch stage martial artist who had betrayed Duan Ling Tian turned pale. He could not believe all this to be true. The very person who had demonstrated a cultivation base of 1st level void interpretation stage just 3 months ago could now kill a 2nd level martial monarch in just one blow. In addition to that, the speed at which he launched his assault was so fast that he could barely catch any trace at all. Soon, the 3rd level martial monarch narrowed his eyes. Before he could even make out what was happening, a familiar figure had already appeared in front of him. Diduan. Opening his mouth, he tried to speak, but he did not have the opportunity to finish his sentence at all, for Duan Ling Tian had already made his move and killed him. In just the blink of an eye, Duan Ling Tian had already exterminated 2 people, making everyone regard him as the killing god. Each of them was looking at him with dread. I'm lucky that I didn't scheme against him like that idiot did. As the other man who arrived with Duan Ling Tian previously gasped in horror, he secretly rejoiced at the same time. The guy who's just been killed spread the fake news, saying that the purple-clad young man was a first-level void interoperation stage martial artist. It must have never crossed his mind that not only had he caused the death of somebody else, but he also expedited his own death too. If such a powerhouse is already on the first-level void interpretation stage, then wouldn't I be even worse than the void prying stage? Judging from his strength, he shouldn't belong here with us at all. The group of people buried their heads in a heated discussion as they peered at Duan Ling Tian with terror. These people had either arrived there before Duan Ling Tian or after him. However, they all had one similarity. All of them were martial artists below the 4th-level martial monarch stage. In the sky, the old man dressed in a green robe was looking at Xiao Zhong peculiarly as he asked, "Xiao Zhong, are you sure that he's only a void interpretation stage martial artist?" "Impossible." Xiao Zhong ignored the green-robed old man. He stared at the purple-colored figure with bafflement and disbelief. 3 months ago, the cultivation base that this purple-clad young man demonstrated was at the first-level void interpretation stage. He had witnessed it with his own eyes and did not think that it was fake. However, now that the purple-clad young man had made his move, he demonstrated a strength that was nowhere below the 5th or 6th level martial monarch stage. He had also witnessed this with his own eyes, so it must be true as well. For this very reason, he was confused. What exactly could have accelerated a first-level void interpretation stage martial artist's strength to such a horrifying level 3 months later? Duan Ling Tian. Suddenly, a voice transmission entered Duan Ling Tian's ears. The moment Duan Ling Tian heard this, he immediately turned to look in the direction of the voice. He soon noticed that the person who was interacting with him through the voice transmission was the other person who had arrived together with him and Xiao Zhong. "Anything?" Duan Ling Tian asked through his voice transmission. "Duan Ling Tian, with your strength, you could have completely defeated everyone at that pavilion behind the staircase and taken that pavilion for yourself. The environment there is much better than here," resonated the voice transmission again. "The pavilion?" Upon hearing this, Duan Ling Tian looked at the higher section of the other side of the staircase. There stood another stone platform, and there was an exquisite pavilion sitting atop the stone platform. When he first arrived, he had already seen the pavilion. At that time, he thought that the residence belonged to Xiao Zhong and another martial emperor's disciple of Lingxian Peak. For this reason, he had not given it much thought anymore. However, somebody had just told him that he could have actually defeated the people inside the pavilion and wrested that pavilion as his own. From the very start, we were wrong. That pavilion was a residence for us to stay to. However, the strongest among us is qualified to stay there, continued the person who reminded Duan Ling Tian, as if he read the question in his mind. Even though Duan Ling Tian did not gather his heaven and earth energy to become the heaven and earth phenomenon earlier during his 2 attacks, he could see that Duan Ling Tian's strength was far from that of the person who had taken the pavilion for himself. No matter how strong that person was, he was only on the 3rd-level martial monarch stage. That person did not necessarily possess the strength to kill the 2 men in just one blow, as Duan Ling Tian had done. Right at this moment, Xiao Zhong's words seemed to echo in Duan Ling Tian's ears again. "If you really find it dirty, you can change your accommodation as you see fits." That day, Duan Ling Tian had wondered why Xiao Zhong would have uttered such peculiar words. Now he finally understood. Looks like there's a show for us to watch. That guy has taken that pavilion for himself for 2 entire months. It's time he moved his nest away. Many people noticed Duan Ling Tian looking at the pavilion above the stone platform behind the staircase. They could guess what he was thinking about, and at once, they were consumed with excitement and anticipation. Under the watchful eyes of the others, Duan Ling Tian was prepared to make his move. "So, it's you who killed my brother." A cold voice resonated from the sky, halting him in his tracks as he looked towards the direction of the voice. In the air, 3 figures were descending from the sky. The leader was a middle-aged man in a green robe who was glaring at him with sharply.